Wula, wula, Yoy Yeshua, wula, 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 Mamu, wula, 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 Gabrieli Moran, wula, 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 Kaya, Wanju, Nija, Nunga, Buja, Jerpin, Nunak, Jinningin, Gabrieli Moran, Buja, Kulin, Dabrakan, Nija, Kubarak, Buja, Kura, Bilya, Durble Yerrigan, Mamakrut, Nija Gabrieli Moran, Wula Mamu Nija, Kubarak, Buja. Virtually in English, welcome to this country, Nyungar country you're seeing. I'm happy to be here, just looking and talking to you here in this beautiful land of the country of our ancient rivers and seas and bushlands, which you are all interested in, of our trees and the bush. The lands of our ancestors, our grandmothers and our grandfathers, here in Whadjuk country, and we praise God here for this beautiful country. You know, there are 14 different, there are 14 different clans that make up the Nyungar Nation. For those who are visiting from other countries, I welcome you. The Nyungar Nation is in the southwest of Western Australia, and each one has its own specific name and area from where we come from. The Nyungar Nation extends from Whadjuk, that's here in Perth, to Ewart, north out at Moora, and east out at the Balladong at the eastern wheat belt, and as far as Menang in Albany. And so that's how our people were made. Duran, Muckaroo, Julba and Camberang. So Nyungar people relied on those 6 seasons. They didn't have a calendar and they didn't have a determination or determining, you know, about 4 seasons as we have it now. There were 6 seasons involved with that 12 months. And so, you know, in those 6 seasons were 2 months like January, February, March or June. So there were 2 seasons in that. We're right now in the second rain, and that second rain is like sort of slowing down a little bit, but it did rain last night. I heard it. And, you know, where we go through a time where there's 2 summers, the first summer and the second summer. You know, we have January, February, we call it Bunaroo. The first summer is quite warm, but the second summer is 45 degrees or more. And so we understand that because our bodies were made to, you know, be in tune with that natural environment. They lived off their land, they gathered their food. They went along the Durble Yerrigan or went out to the Marmarakut, that was along the Bilya, the river, or out at near the ocean, or the Buja, the land. And so the trees were very important to them. And you would know about 6 different trees that has information up at Kings Park where I work, where I do my tours. And there's the Marri tree, the Jarrah tree, the Chewit tree. All of these trees have Nyungar names and they still use those names today. There's one particular tree at Kings Park. I have to walk past it every day when I do my tours. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, I walk past that tree every day, and it's been introduced to down here. It actually comes from the Kimberleys, and it's a boab tree, and it has a bit of problem there with it for a little while because it had dieback set in it. I don't know if people have seen that tree as yet, but it had a bit of problem there, and we didn't think it would survive. But one day we were standing there, and this very old Aboriginal man came. and he was wheeled there in a wheelchair. And he said, I wanted to come and see this tree, because this tree to me tells the story of how long my people been here. And it tells the story of how long that tree was there, 750 years. So 750 years tell us that, you know, Aboriginal people have been around for a long time. They could live off their natural environment. They knew exactly where things were. They were gatherers, they were hunters, and they knew how to live off their lands. You know, the Derbyl was also a place that provided lots of food. It actually was a freshwater river before it became, you know, before it was altered down at Fremantle, and then the sea was allowed to come in. And so, you know, there's all this kind of thing. So Nyungar people camped at the foot of Kings Park, and they called that place Winmar, which was called later Kennedy's Fountain, and today it's called the Swan Brewery. And Nyungar people camped there because, you know why they camped there? There were several different freshwater springs. And so they could camp and they could go and get their fresh water whenever they wanted to. But in 1828, the Swan River colony had been established. And you know what they said to the Nyungar people? You can't stay here no more. You have to move along to somewhere else. So they got move on notices. But you see, the thing is that they lived off their natural environment. They knew where everything was. You know, out there in that bush was a supermarket to them. You know, they would gather their water, they would fish, they would catch their kangaroos, they would catch all their native animals. And on a particular hill, where we call it Karakumba, is where I work. And to me, that's a very important place to me, because in 2006, on the 19th of September, my mother and several of our family members had lodged a native title to prove their cultural and traditional rights. And my mother was the oldest woman there, and she proved that her grandmother was born there. Her great-grandmother's mother was born there. Her name was Gertigen, but she had children to a white man. She had 14 children. She had 10 sons and 4 daughters. And that person, you would probably know of a surname that is connected to that man. His name was John Henry Munger. So you have Munger's Lake. So there's a connection for me and my children through that area. So this is the reason why I like to tell my stories when I do my tourism, because I want to tell the story that was handed down to me from my old people. To win a native title over a major city was a big win all around the world. Nowhere else in the world had they won a native title over a city, and it was my people that did that. And there were 5 applicants that put in that registration to do that. So, you know, it is important because our stories are still there. You know, there might be names that's changed around. They called it Kennedy's Fountain or the Swan Brewery. Well, you would have heard of a place called Karry-Anne, Fire on the Hill. So, you know, there are still some names there. We call the river Derbyl. Just down here at South Perth, where the Main Street Jetty is, I had the privilege to not rename it, but give it back its old name. Minderup means a place of gathering. And so it's important to me and my family that we continue to keep our stories strong, our information strong, because that's my mother and my father, my Gabrieles, my Morans, that's their language. That's their story. I'm speaking for them. I'm continuing to carry on our stories, because we got to keep our stories true. We got to keep it to us, because I don't want someone else telling my family history, because they might change it and they might tell it in a different way. So I just give you that little bit of information, but also I'm an author as well. I've written several books, but I want to talk, because we're talking about, you know, saving the bush and the trees. I wrote a story about Muljal, the Muljal tree. And you probably would know this by now, or it's coming up soon. And it's about the Nutsia floribundra. I love that tree, because to us, that is the spirit tree that keeps our spirit strong. Kura kura nija, kura, Muljal york ba wanganing. This is a sad story from long ago about Muljal York, the Christmas tree woman. Muljal York was a very beautiful Nyungar woman with long, lovely, golden, shiny hair. Her husband and her family loved her very much because she was so beautiful and kind. Muljal York always helped her family and all the people she cared about. So that's Muljal York there. My sister's the author. Muljalyok always was busy. She gathered food and cooked and cared for her family. Nyondich Winyan Muljalyok. Sadly, Muljalyok became very ill. She was going to leave them by passing away. As she lay there, the people were crying and calling her name. Muljalyok, she heard their sorrow and called to them, I will come back and visit you again. So that's the tree there. Today, the beautiful Muljalyok spirit comes to visit. You will see the golden flowers of the Christmas tree, the Nutsia floribundra, and the golden rays of sunshine when the flowers bloom. Nyungar people when Nyungar people see the Christmas tree flowers, they are very happy and have an overwhelming feeling of joy from the Muljalyok spirit. Nyungar people never break the flowers or branches of the Christmas tree because they want that tree and the Muljalyok spirit to visit them again. So that's a very significant story to me because that was told to me before I went to school to learn in a Western society. I had stories that was told to me by my old people. I had language, I had my native tongue at home, and I went to school and I had to put on another hat. I went to school and learned about Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, and I thought it was the most silliest thing I ever heard. And, you know, I'm not knocking school or education or, you know, science or anything like that there. I just think it's an amazing thing. But I thought, well, what are you going to do with this egg? You're going to break it and eat it. You know, you couldn't do anything more with it because it just seemed so like dead or lifeless. But with me, my stories was like, you know, once old Warradong, he had his own beautiful woman, but one day she disappeared and he doesn't know where she's gone and he doesn't know if someone had took her away, but he runs this way and that way, calling all the time, whack, whack, whack. His voice is croaky because he's always calling whack, whack, whack. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? So you would see him around quite a bit, the old black crow. We call him the Warradong. And the only bird that's game enough to stand up to him is a little willy wagtail. How about that? So I say to you guys, and especially to David and Ingrid and all of you here today and people that are visiting, I say welcome. And, you know, my business is called Nyungar Tours, and I'm, you know, ready to make business, make things happen. I do quite a bit of work out in the bush, and I've got a family group that we're all ready to, you know, take this on with you guys as well. We want to work with you, and, you know, we want to maintain and look after our bush as much as possible, because I will continue to write stories about my Nyungar people and about our bushland and how we survived and lived off the land. So I say to you all, welcome to Nyungar country. Welcome to Whadjuk country. Thank you.
Thank you, Karry-Anne. That was really, really wonderful to hear.